The wait is finally over as we're taking a look at the all-new 2025 Subaru Forester Hybrid. It has been a long time in the making, and this is a huge addition to the Subaru lineup. Now, as we already know, a lot of manufacturers are already offering hybrid 4-cylinders in this segment, such as the Honda CR-V, Toyota RAV4, Ford Escape, Hyundai Tucson, the list just goes on and on. But if you're one of those buyers who wants a super symmetrical all-wheel drive, the 8.7 inches of ground clearance, maybe even the practicality, versatility, and the interior space, well, you are now in luck, because with the 2025 Subaru Forester Hybrid, this might be the pick in the Subaru lineup. In today's video, we're going to check out what the Forester Hybrid has to offer. We're going to check out the exterior, the interior, take it out for a quick test drive, and see why, if you are in the market for an efficient crossover for you and your family, and you don't want to spend over $40,000, then maybe taking a look at the Subaru Forester Premium Hybrid might be a great decision. Now, before we get in this video, I want to give a huge shout and thank you to Ira Subaru in Danvers, Massachusetts, for letting me come down here to check out the Subaru Forester Hybrid. Their link will be in the description below, so you can check out their extensive Subaru inventory. So as always, let's begin with that pricing. For 2025 with the Subaru Forester Premium Hybrid, you're looking at a starting cost of just under, and I mean just under, $35,000. This is the base trim for the hybrid lineup for 2025. But there's nothing basic about this model in any way, shape, or form. In fact, there are some features that are only exclusive for the hybrid lineup compared to the gas-powered equivalent for each trim. Now, as you can tell from the outside, nothing's different here at all, unless you know your Subarus very well. We're going to talk about this as we check out the exterior. But from far away, you wouldn't even know this is a hybrid. There's two hybrid badges, but aside from that, nothing lets you know this is different than your average everyday Forester that you see in driveways all across America. But as we take a look at the exterior, though, there is a few things that are different mechanically. Of course, you have that hybrid 4-cylinder, but with that hybrid 4-cylinder and the electric motor, you now have a Forester that's about 300 pounds heavier than the gas-powered model. So right there, we're going to notice that the driving characteristics and driving dynamics are going to be a bit different than the full gas-powered Forester. Now, aesthetically, as we take a look up front, you are going to receive steering responsive LED headlights and LED fog lights for better visibility at night or in adverse weather conditions. For the lower portion of the front bumper, you're going to have that cladding once again, so theoretically, you can take the hybrid off-road if you so desire. Now, as you make your way over to the side profile, this is where you have that one huge difference. So with the Hybrid Premium, you are going to have 18-inch alloy wheels, which is only available for the Hybrid Premium. So if you went with the gas-powered version, you would have 17s. And I know what you're going to be saying, wait a minute. So we have a difference in the tire size. That's going to create a lot more road noise, isn't it? There's going to be a difference in that ride quality. Maybe I want to go with that gas-powered Premium. Well, pump the brakes on that, because since you do have the electric motors and since this model is about 300 pounds heavier, Subaru did have to accommodate that electric motor and give this vehicle a lot more refinement and rigidity. So we'll talk about that during the test drive, but I think you will be genuinely surprised with what these 18s have to offer. Then as you make your way around to the back, there is nothing different here at all, including the exhaust outlet that is visible. So aesthetically, like I said before, nothing's different, nothing's changed. It's the same Forester you all know and love. No LED taillights, once again, which I would love to see in future model years, but you are going to have that gloss black trim that runs the length of the rear fascia into the center portion of that tailgate. And then for the lower portion of the rear bumper, you are going to have that cladding once again, letting you know you can take on the elements if you so desire. Powering the Subaru Forester we have today is a 2.5-liter hybrid 4-cylinder engine, producing 194 horsepower and 199 pound-feet of torque. It is paired with the CVT. We have super symmetrical all-wheel drive, and then also 8.7 inches of ground clearance and the same towing capacity of 1,500 pounds. On paper, this seems to be a no-brainer. But on the pavement, though, under heavier accelerations, you don't get the simulated gear shifts with this CVT. You also get a vehicle that feels a bit more lethargic and slow, despite the fact we have close to 200 horsepower and 200 pound-feet of torque. So keep all of this in mind. If you're someone who doesn't care about fuel efficiency, I would steer you towards a full gas-powered version. But for those of you who want to stretch your dollar just a bit more, let's talk about that fuel economy. You're looking at right around 35 miles per gallon in the city and 34 miles per gallon on the highway, which is exactly what Subaru buyers have been waiting for. Up to this point in the 2020s, we haven't really had a hybrid model in the lineup. So if you're someone who's looking for a two-row crossover that is practical and somewhat rugged and off-road worthy, the Forester is going to be a great alternative in this market. And also, I think it's providing a lot of value here at around $35,000. Hopping inside the Subaru Forester Premium Hybrid, you are going to receive heated cloth seats for both the driver and passenger, with the driver's side having power adjustability, whereas the passenger will have to manually find their ideal seating position, which is pretty common in the Subaru product line. If you want to have that power adjustability for the passenger side, you'll be spending over $40,000 or close to. So keep all of this in mind. In regards to the comfort for these seats, they provide a lot of support and bolstering, which is a bit of a surprise for a vehicle at around $35,000 that's also not sports tuned. But Subaru does do a pretty good job with their cloth upholstery, as we've experienced throughout the years. So on those longer road trips or weekday commutes, you shouldn't be dealing with any type of fatigue here in this model, which is huge for a daily driver such as this. But the reason why I am here, at least, is to check out this full digital gauge cluster. This is a huge leap forward for the brand, but also another thing too is that even in 2025, a gas-powered Forester still gets the analog gauges and small information display in the center. So if you're someone who is more of a tech geek and you like what Chevrolet, Honda, Toyota, and Ford is offering, take a look at the Subaru Forester now. Before we check out this gauge cluster though, let's talk about the button layout on the steering wheel, because it is identical to the gas-powered Forester. On the left side of the steering wheel will be your buttons for your hands-free calling, also volume and tuning, and then what controls your digital gauge cluster. Then on the right side of the steering wheel will be your adaptive cruise control settings, lane centering, and then your SI drive modes. Now, by using the toggle on the left side of the steering wheel and then also your information button, you can change the layout to your liking. There's 3 different layouts here for the Forester, one being a minimal layout, then your traditional gauges, and then the one layout I really like is the map display. And this map display kind of reminds me of what you see with Audi's virtual cockpit. Now, I am in no way, shape, or form comparing a $35,000 Forester to a $70,000 Audi. But when you take a look at the layout here and the resolution and quality, there is some similarities here. It's just that it's not as in-depth or as intuitive. By using those toggles, though, you can scroll through some information here, such as your radio, your turn-by-turn navigation, your fuel economy statistics, and then also your tire pressure monitoring system. So, very similar layout and information that is found in a full gas-powered Forester or other Subarus in the lineup. It's just that now everything is digitalized, which I think this is huge for the brand. Now, taking a very quick look at the infotainment system for 2025 with the hybrid model, you are going to receive an 11.6-inch touchscreen with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility to go along with onboard navigation. That is a key difference here for the hybrid trim for the premium compared to a gas-powered version. So if you're someone who wants onboard nav from Subaru, go with the hybrid trim for 2025. The layout is the exact same. All your widgets are in place and within arm's reach. You can add or delete widgets at any time if you so desire. There are physical buttons and dials on both sides of the screen for the volume and tuning. Front and rear defrosters, also heated outside mirrors, dual zone climate control. At the bottom of the screen will be touch sensitive icons for your 3-level heated seats, also your AC, fan speed, fan direction, and you can open up a sub menu for that dual zone climate control if you want to access that on the screen itself. But probably more importantly is that there is another difference that we don't find out of the full gas-powered version, and that is your vehicle control tab. So everything is the exact same in regards to vehicle dynamics control, X mode, cruise control, acceleration speed, auto vehicle hold, and steering responsive headlights. And then, of course, your driving assistance features, which, again, I would leave all these on for added safety and assurance when you are going on those weekday commutes. But then we get to the More Settings tab, which typically for any Subaru is just your warning volume levels and units of measurement. But because we have a full digital gauge cluster, there is one difference here. You have your meter display mode, which you can easily change up those layouts if you so desire without having used the buttons on the steering wheel. But then also meter map view. So you can go with a 3D layout or 2D layout. I prefer the 3D view, just my opinion, because again, it reminds me of some premium digital gauge clusters that we see at around $60,000 to $70,000. So I would leave it on 3D mode. That's just my take though. Now, by going with the premium hybrid, you are going to receive a rear backup camera with trajectory, but no top view or side views. So very typical for a vehicle at around $35,000. If you want some better camera angles, you have to go a little higher up in the trim levels for 2025. Continuing on, beneath the head unit, you will find an auxiliary outlet, USB-C and USB-A outlets, a wireless tone charging pad, then just your gear selector here up to the center console, electronic parking brake, 12-volt outlet, and 2 cup holders. And you will have a standard storage compartment that is rather deep, where you can store a couple smartphones, wallets, or other tech gadgets. And then to round out the front seating area, above will be a power moonroof, which brings in a lot of natural light to the interior. Now, continuing on for passengers in the second row, they're going to receive right around 39.5 inches of legroom, which falls right in line with the Toyota RAV4, Honda CR-V, Hyundai Tucson, and Volkswagen Tiguan. To put that into perspective, you could adjust the seat in front of you all the way back, and you won't be feeling cramped or claustrophobic. Now, there are a few reasons as to why I think the Forester is the more family-friendly choice in the lineup, which I know a lot of you have disagreed with me in the past. But just take a look at the headroom that you have here for the Forester. That higher roofline allows you to have taller passengers sit in the back very comfortably, and they won't be hitting their head on the headliner. Also, with the Forester, you don't have an aggressive center hump per se, so you can squeeze in a third person in the center, and you won't be fighting for that elbow room or that legroom. That is what's so huge about this model and why it is so versatile and family friendly. Whereas with the Outback, you have that lower roof line and also have a more aggressive center hump. And I don't think you'll be squeezing in that third person, but that's just my take. You might find the results to be a bit different, but I think for the Forester, this vehicle all around, especially now with the hybrid 4-cylinder, makes this vehicle a great all around great daily driver. Now, with the cloth seats, they do provide a decent amount of support and bolstering for the second row. So when you are on those longer road trips and maybe on those longer weekday commutes, you'll find yourself very comfortable back here. Now, you will have a USB-C and USB-A outlet to go along with 2 center-mounted air vents. Then to round out the second row seating area, you do get a center armrest with 2 cup holders. Now, making our way around to the back one more time to take a look at the rear cargo area. By going with the Forester Premium Hybrid, you are going to receive a power liftgate. And inside, behind the second row seats, you're looking at right on 27.5 cubic feet of room, which is identical to the gas-powered equivalent in the Forester lineup. So you're not losing anything here by going with the hybrid for 2025. However, there are 2 minor differences here compared to that gas-powered model. Let's talk about them. On the left side of the rear cargo area, you'll lose one of those cubbies. So with the full gas-powered model, you'd have 2 cubbies on both sides of the cargo area for some smaller items. So for the Forester Hybrid, you only have one on the right side for a couple water bottles, car detail equipment, or maybe even a first aid kit. And then probably more importantly is that beneath the floor mat, you are not going to have a spare tire. So just like with that Honda CR-V hybrid, no spare tire. That might be one thing to consider here by going with a hybrid for 2025. Then with the second row seats folded, you're looking at right on 69 cubic feet of room, which once again is identical to the gas-powered version for the Forester Premium. So still very practical, still very dailyable and family-friendly. Also for our model, we do have a rear cargo cover, which keeps all your valuable items out of sight. So if you are like me and you have camera gear or anything else of value, you can leave them back here and have that peace of mind knowing that no one will be able to peek in and steal what you have. For a crossover like the Subaru Forester, everything hinges upon the intangibles. The 8.7 inches of ground clearance, super symmetrical all-wheel drive, which does come standard. Also, a vehicle that is practical and efficient. But now we have a new dimension, and that is the hybrid 4-cylinder. We're going to get on the highway here and see what this engine is capable of. What is interesting here is that close to 200 horsepower, 200 pound-feet of torque, you don't really feel it. And in fact, the CVT drones a lot more than what you have in the full gas-powered models. That's a bit of a surprise. I thought Subaru was going to give us more like an eCVT experience. That isn't the case here. Now, there is a few things I do notice about this model right off the bat. One is the steering input is much more weighted, which I wish the full gas-powered Subaru Forester received, because it gives you a lot more engagement and it also helps out with that cornering ability. Now, also another thing too is that compared to the full gas-powered model, this is about 300 pounds heavier, so I'm probably feeling that here with the steering. But I will say that for a vehicle with a hybrid powertrain with the larger 18-inch wheels, because the full gas-powered model gets the 17s, it's actually quite quiet. This engine does not make a lot of noise. Let's see if we can pass a slower driver here. And it does an okay job putting the power down. I am slightly surprised though, because for most hybrids in this market, whether it's the RAV4 or Honda CR-V, they're quicker with the hybrid powertrain. I think the full gas-powered model feels a lot more athletic and spry than what we have here today. But it does have a really nice composure on the roadways. It's very smooth, extremely smooth in fact. And the way the suspension and chassis is set up, it glides over the roadways a lot more than that gas-powered Forester. Because with the Forester, you feel the bumps and imperfections a bit, but it has more of a rigid suspension that can take on the elements. I feel like what Subaru has done here for the new hybrid is give you a vehicle that is primarily for on-road driving. I will say though that when you are on throttle, you don't need to put a lot of emphasis on that gas pedal. It does take off quite well. It's just that when you're flooring it, when you're passing slower drivers entering highways, that's where it drones quite a bit. And I think it's right there where I'm like, I would go with the gas-powered model if I'm looking for something a bit more engaging or a bit more responsive in that way. But as a hybrid though, you're now getting a whole new dimension like I said before. Now you're getting fuel efficiency. And a lot of Subaru Forester buyers, let's be real, especially for a premium, they're not going off-road. They're taking on snow-covered roadways during the winter. They're not going camping. They're not going anywhere really. This is going to be a vehicle for mall terrain. And the hybrid gives buyers a bit more bang for their buck. On top of that, you also have that full digital gauge cluster now, which I'm actually genuinely surprised. This is the first time I'm experiencing this gauge cluster, and at least in the layout that I have it in right now, it kind of reminds me of a more trimmed down version of the older Audi's virtual cockpit. That means a lot to me. Now also this new leather wrapped steering wheel, I'm actually a bit jealous here because I don't get this in my WRX. Feels really nice and premium in the hands, aggressive 10-2 and firm 9-3 grips, and also just feels really nice for a vehicle just over, $33,000. Now I will say though that I am currently in sport mode here, so that is giving me a bit more heft to the steering input, and then also the throttle response is a bit more active. But even when I place it in individual mode, it doesn't really change up the driving dynamics at all. And while I do think the hybrid powertrain does take away from the Forester's more engaging driving characteristics for a vehicle with a 4-cylinder engine that is naturally aspirated and a CVT, this is perfect for those of you that are looking to stretch your dollar when it comes to that fuel economy. I mean, Subaru can't keep these in. I've been waiting weeks for this model to arrive, or at least for one to show up where I can actually feature it. And I can see the appeal. I can totally see the appeal. But I think when you factor in what this model is providing, the fact that it is so quiet, that it is so comfortable, that the suspension is tuned very softly, and then you throw in the other dynamics that come into play for a hybrid at this price point, I can see why a lot of Subaru loyalists are falling in love with this model immediately. And I don't want you guys walking away from this review thinking, all right, Mike doesn't like the hybrid 4-cylinder, doesn't like the CVT, doesn't like the droning, so I'm going to pass up on this crossover because I would just go with the gas-powered model. I don't want that to be your main takeaway. What the premium is offering here at around $35,000 is a lot of value, and I think that the premium for the hybrid lineup is the way to go. I don't think it's necessary spending over $40,000 for the touring. If you're someone who wants to have the ventilated seats, leather seats, you want to have all those creature comforts and amenities, then by all means. But for $35,000, you get a vehicle that has a good amount of fuel economy here, right around 35 miles per gallon. You also get a vehicle with dual zone climate control, heated front seats, power moonroof, full digital gauge cluster. You are getting a lot here at $35,000, and that's why I think that if you are someone solely looking at buying a hybrid for the Forester for 2025, look no further than the premium. All in all, after this quick test drive with the Forester Hybrid, there is a lot to like here about this model, and there's characteristics about this vehicle that I would love to see in the full gas-powered model. One, the heavier steering input. Also, the nicely tuned suspension. Would love to see the suspension be a bit more smoother and refined for the full gas-powered model. Also, I'd love to see this leather-wrapped steering wheel make its way in the gas-powered Forester. Also, the full digital gauge cluster. You're receiving a lot here, like I said before. I keep reiterating that. But for a premium, for a trim that's actually the base for the hybrid for 2025, this is the go-to, and it does make a lot of sense for a lot of you looking to get a vehicle that is efficient from Subaru right now, because this is currently the first hybrid in the lineup. We're getting the Crosstrek very soon, and if you need a vehicle that is a bit larger than that Crosstrek, the Forester makes a lot of sense in many ways. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick review for the 2025 Subaru Forester Premium Hybrid. If you did, please like, comment, share, and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys next time.